that we're really working on that we see as a need in economic development is what's called community benefit districts. And the idea behind CBDs is that even after you create these great walkable places, and actually even you could really use it even before you do it, you need a management structure for it. So our cities and towns are stretched really thin. I mean, Worcester can struggles to provide you basic services across the city because their costs are increasing in different ways that they can't control, and they don't have the new revenue to make up for that. So if you look at downtown Worcester and the businesses there, it might make sense for them to have daily trash pickup, but the city of Worcester can only provide weekly trash pickup. Who's going to develop those kinds of services? Who's going to do all the landscaping that might be needed, where you need people sweeping the sidewalks every day? Snow removal during the winter time. Who's going to clean the sidewalks? Is that a public responsibility? The city doesn't have the capacity to do that. And they certainly, if they do it in downtown, then what about the other neighborhoods that are going to want that type of service as well? So community benefit districts basically says it allows property owners to come together to create almost a kind of condo association where they can provide services on top of what the city, basically what the city can't provide, and they pay for that themselves. So this is a tool that we think could be really useful in dozens of cities and towns like Worcester across the Commonwealth. And they can do things like marketing and branding of those areas. They can provide technical assistance to small businesses. They could do things like, and I'm thinking specifically of one of the best CBDs in the whole country is in Little Italy in San Diego. And what they do is they've been able to keep chains completely out of that very popular neighborhood because they have a shared, they work with the property owners to encourage them to work with mom and pop businesses. They've actually created new relationships with Italian entrepreneurs to attract them from Italy so that they're creating authentic new small businesses, and so that there doesn't need to be those kinds of chain opportunities. But they also do some really interesting things, like they manage an enormous farmers market every week. They manage a shared valet parking system for all the businesses, so they don't have to have their own valet parking, and they don't have to have their own off-street parking. So these management entities can really be very powerful. And what we're proposing through community benefit districts is to make sure that it's an accountable system. It's not privatization of services. It doesn't kind of take over what the city would do. It only does things that the city can't do. But it would give a broad community stakeholders a seat at the decision-making table. Would have to be managed by a nonprofit organization, and on the board of directors would be private property owners in part, but it could also be residents, it could be nonprofit institutions, it could be the city and other public agencies. Because frankly, what we're seeing more and more in our communities is that we don't have the big, downtown companies that are anchoring our communities anymore. The whole 1950s era where you had the local bank, you had the local department store, and other kinds of businesses. We just don't have those anymore. In fact, what our real community anchors nowadays tend to be major nonprofit institutions and public agencies. So how do we, and they don't pay property taxes, so how do we get them more involved in governing our places, which benefits them too? So, a hospital loves to have a walkable campus all around it, but there's no real way for them to be proactive about making that happen. But this would give them a tool to work with other property owners, with nonprofits, with the city and other entities to develop a management plan for an area and to figure out who's going to pay for it. How is everybody going to chip in to fund what's needed? I think that's really exciting, and could be very flexible. Could be used for historic preservation districts. Could be used for cultural districts. Can be used for main streets types of areas. So it could be very flexible.